Luna Station's diplomatic quarter had been designed to impress, with its sweeping corridors lined with holographic displays showcasing the finest achievements of human civilization. Dr. Maya Chen walked these halls every day as part of her duties as cultural attaché, but today the familiar grandeur felt different. Today, she was about to meet alien royalty. Remember, Dr. Chen, Ambassador Rodriguez had briefed her that morning. Princess Lyrian represents the most advanced civilization we've encountered. The Stellar Consortium's technology is centuries ahead of ours, their society is perfectly structured, and their royalty is genetically optimized for leadership. This is not just a diplomatic meeting, it's potentially the most important first contact in human history. Maya adjusted her diplomatic credentials and approached the guest quarters that had been specially modified for the princess's visit. The standard human accommodations had been replaced with something that looked more like a living organism than architecture. The walls seemed to breathe, shifting through subtle color gradients that somehow conveyed a sense of calm sophistication. Bioluminescent patterns traced along the ceiling in mathematical spirals that were beautiful without being comprehensible. The door, if it could be called that, dilated open at her approach with a soft harmonic chime. Maya stepped inside and found herself in an environment that challenged every assumption about interior design. The floor felt warm and slightly yielding beneath her feet, more like walking on living coral than any synthetic material. Furniture seemed to grow directly from the surfaces, adjusting height and configuration based on some unknown criteria. Princess Lyrian stood at the far wall, which had become transparent to provide an unobstructed view of Earth hanging in the lunar sky. She was smaller than Maya had expected, perhaps 5.5 feet tall, with the kind of perfect posture that suggested either excellent genetics or intensive training. Her hair was a deep auburn that seemed to hold its own light, and her skin had a subtle luminescence that made her appear to glow softly in the chamber's ambient lighting. What struck Maya most immediately was how human the princess looked, save for the elegantly pointed ears that marked her alien heritage. No exotic features, no unusual body structure, just a woman who could have walked down any street on Earth without attracting attention if not for those distinctive ears and an bearing that practically radiated nobility. "Your Highness," Maya said, executing what she hoped was an appropriate bow. "I'm Dr. Maya Chen, your assigned cultural liaison during your stay on Luna Station." Princess Lyrian turned from the window, and Maya was surprised by the melancholy in her expression. For someone participating in historic peace negotiations, she looked profoundly sad. "Dr. Chen." "Yes, I have read your credentials. Oxford University, doctorate in Xenosociology, 3 years with the Diplomatic Corps, specialization in first contact protocols." The princess's voice carried a musical quality that suggested her species had different vocal structures despite their human appearance. "Tell me, what is your assessment of my cultural requirements?" Maya consulted her data pad, trying to project professional competence. "We've prepared recreational activities suited to your intellectual level, cultural exhibits showcasing human artistic achievement, and a comprehensive overview of our social structures. The goal is to provide you with a complete understanding of human civilization during your visit." "Recreational activities," the princess repeated, as if testing the words. "This is an interesting concept. Please elaborate." "Well, activities pursued for enjoyment rather than necessity. Games, sports, artistic creation, entertainment." Maya realized she was explaining basic concepts to someone from an advanced civilization and felt slightly foolish. "Things people do in their free time." "Free time?" Princess Lyrian's expression grew more thoughtful. "Time that is not scheduled or assigned specific purposes." "Fascinating. And these games you mentioned, they serve no functional purpose beyond amusement?" "Exactly. Though some argue they help with problem-solving skills, social bonding, stress relief." Maya trailed off as she noticed the princess's quarters responding to the conversation. The walls had shifted to a warmer blue, and several pieces of furniture had reconfigured themselves into what looked like gaming surfaces. "Your room seems to be listening to us," Maya observed. "Bioresponsive architecture." It monitors my physiological and emotional states, adjusting the environment to maintain optimal conditions. Princess Lyrian gestured dismissively, as if living in a space that read her feelings was perfectly normal. Show me these games. Maya pulled out a travel chess set from her diplomatic kit, one of several cultural items she carried for exactly these situations. This is chess. It's a strategy game representing warfare between two armies, but abstracted into a purely intellectual exercise. Princess Lyrian examined the carved wooden pieces with intense concentration, her fingers tracing the details of each figure. These represent military units. Infantry, cavalry, command structure. Originally, yes, but now it's just about pattern recognition, strategic thinking, planning several moves ahead. Maya began setting up the board. The goal is to capture the opponent's king through superior positioning and tactical thinking. I see. A simulation of conquest without actual violence. Efficient. The princess picked up the white queen, studying it with the kind of attention Maya usually reserved for ancient artifacts. This piece, the queen, she is the most powerful unit on the battlefield. She is. She can move in any direction, any distance. She's the most versatile and dangerous piece in the game. Yet she exists to protect the king, who is weak and limited in his movement, Princess Lyrian observed. Curious. In your society, does power typically serve those who are less capable? Maya paused, realizing she was about to discuss political theory with alien royalty. It's complicated. Democratic systems theoretically distribute power among the population, but in practice. But those with actual capability often serve those with hereditary authority, the princess finished. Yes, I understand this dynamic quite well. They played 3 games. Maya won the first through experience, lost the second to surprising tactical creativity, and was completely demolished in the third by strategies she didn't even recognize as chess until it was too late. You're a natural at this, Maya said, staring at the board in amazement. I have extensive training in military strategy. The abstract nature of this game makes it refreshingly peaceful. Princess Lyrian reset the pieces with careful precision. What other recreational activities do humans engage in? Maya showed her video games on her tablet, expecting them to be dismissed as childish entertainment. Instead, the princess studied them with the same intense focus she'd brought to chess, asking detailed questions about narrative structure, player motivation, and the social implications of interactive storytelling. These are cultural documents, she declared after watching Maya play a simple puzzle game. They reveal how your people process challenges, cope with failure, celebrate achievement. This is invaluable anthropological data. They're just games, Your Highness. People play them to relax. That makes them even more significant. When beings choose how to occupy their unstructured time, they reveal their true nature. Princess Lyrian watched the screen with fascination as colorful blocks arranged themselves into satisfying patterns. In my culture, all time is structured. All activities serve predetermined purposes. The concept of choice in entertainment is alien to me. Maya felt a pang of sympathy at the wistful tone in the princess's voice. What do people in the consortium do for fun? Fun is not a recognized category of activity. We have physical conditioning, intellectual stimulation, cultural education, and social bonding exercises. All serve specific developmental or maintenance purposes. The princess's quarters had shifted to a cooler palette, responding to what Maya was beginning to recognize as emotional patterns. We are a highly efficient society. That sounds. Maya searched for diplomatic phrasing. Very organized. It is. We have eliminated waste, inefficiency, and unnecessary conflict. Every citizen fulfills their optimal role based on genetic analysis and psychological profiling performed at birth. The princess's voice carried no emotion, as if she were reciting a textbook definition. I was identified as suited for leadership and diplomatic functions. My education and training were designed accordingly. Maya studied the princess's profile as she continued to watch the tablet screen. There was something hungry in her expression, as if she were trying to absorb an entire concept through visual observation alone. "Would you like to try playing?" Maya offered. "That would be inappropriate. I am here for cultural observation, not personal entertainment." "But understanding the experience of play is part of cultural observation, isn't it? You can't really comprehend human recreation without participating in it yourself." Princess Lyrian considered this for a long moment, her quarters cycling through subtle color shifts. "That is, a logical argument. Very well. For diplomatic purposes, I shall engage in this recreational activity." She approached the tablet with the same focus she'd brought to chess, her fingers moving carefully over the touch screen as Maya explained the controls. What followed was the most intense game of Tetris Maya had ever witnessed. The princess attacked the falling blocks with strategic precision, building complex structures and clearing multiple lines simultaneously while maintaining perfect composure. "This is quite engaging," she admitted after achieving what Maya was pretty sure was a station record high score. The combination of pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and time pressure creates a surprisingly compelling challenge. Most people find it relaxing. Relaxing? The princess looked confused. But it requires constant vigilance and optimal decision-making under pressure. How is that restful? Well, it distracts from other worries. When you're focused on the game, you're not thinking about work stress or personal problems. Princess Lyrian went very still. "You mean it allows temporary escape from assigned responsibilities?" "I guess you could put it that way." The princess's quarters suddenly blazed with brilliant gold light, causing Maya to shield her eyes. When the illumination returned to normal levels, the princess was staring at the tablet with an expression of wonder. "Dr. Chen, I believe I am beginning to understand why your people value these recreational activities." Maya was about to respond when her personal communicator chimed with a message from Ambassador Rodriguez. "Chen, report to my office immediately. We've got a situation with the consortium delegation." "I'm sorry, Your Highness, but I need to attend to something. We can continue this tomorrow if you'd like." As Maya gathered her things, she impulsively reached into her pocket and pulled out a small origami crane she'd folded that morning from scrap paper, a nervous habit she'd developed during stressful diplomatic assignments. The delicate paper bird sat in her palm, its wings perfectly aligned, created from nothing more than a square of recycled office paper. "Here," she said, offering it to the princess. "A gift. It's called origami, the art of paper folding. This one's a crane, which represents good fortune in Japanese culture." Princess Lyrian took the paper bird with the same reverence she might show a precious jewel. Her hands trembled slightly as she examined the intricate folds, tracing the edges with her fingertip. "You made this? From ordinary paper?" "It's nothing special, just something I do with my hands when I'm thinking. But I thought you might like it." The princess's quarters erupted in cascading rainbow patterns, colors flowing across the walls and ceiling like aurora. Princess Lyrian looked up at Maya with eyes that seemed to hold starlight. "Dr. Chen," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the harmonic hum of her bio-responsive environment, "you already know my secret." Maya stared at her, completely baffled by the intense reaction to such a simple gift. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." But Princess Lyrian just clutched the origami crane to her chest, her elegant composure finally cracking to reveal something desperate and hopeful beneath. "Tomorrow," she said urgently. "Please come back tomorrow. And perhaps you could show me how to make one of these myself." As Maya left the princess's quarters, she couldn't shake the feeling that her simple gift had somehow changed everything, though she had no idea how or why. Behind her, the bioluminescent patterns in the royal chambers continued their celebration of an emotion the princess had never been allowed to feel before, the joy of receiving something made with care, just for her. Maya returned to Princess Lyrian's quarters the next morning carrying a small package of origami paper and a growing sense of curiosity about the previous day's strange encounter. The princess had requested their meeting through official diplomatic channels, citing a need for extensive cultural education regarding human artistic practices, but something in the formal language felt like elaborate camouflage. The bioresponsive chambers had transformed overnight. Where yesterday the walls had cycled through calm blues and golds, today they shimmered with subtle silver patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the princess's heartbeat. The furniture had reconfigured itself into a more intimate arrangement, with 2 chairs positioned near the observation window and what appeared to be a work surface generated between them. Princess Lyrian stood exactly where Maya had left her the previous evening, still holding the origami crane. She'd changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something that looked more comfortable, a flowing garment that seemed to be cut from the same bioresponsive material as her living quarters. "Dr. Chen, thank you for returning." The princess's voice carried a different quality today, less formally diplomatic and more genuinely warm. "I have been studying your gift most carefully." Maya noticed that the small paper crane now sat in a place of honor on a shelf that definitely hadn't existed yesterday, surrounded by soft lighting that made its simple white form seem almost sacred. "I'm glad you like it. It's really not that complicated to make. Would you like me to show you the basic folds?" "Yes, please. But first, I must ask you something." Princess Lyrian gestured toward the chairs, and they settled facing each other with Earth hanging in the window behind them. "This crane, you created it during a moment of what you called stress." "That's right. I fold paper when I'm anxious or need to think through problems. It helps me focus. And you gave it to me spontaneously, without calculating political advantage or diplomatic benefit?" Maya blinked at the directness of the question. "Of course. It was just a friendly gesture." Princess Lyrian studied her face with intense concentration, as if trying to decode a complex language. In consortium society, all exchanges have predetermined value calculations. Gifts are given to establish obligation, demonstrate status, or achieve specific outcomes. The concept of spontaneous generosity without strategic purpose is. She paused, searching for words. "It is theoretical." "Well, sometimes humans just do nice things for each other because it feels good." "Because it feels good," the princess repeated slowly. "Not because it achieves a goal, but because the action itself generates positive emotional responses." "Exactly." Maya pulled out the origami paper, noting how the princess's quarters brightened at the sight of the colorful squares. "Ready for your first lesson?" What followed was unlike any diplomatic activity Maya had ever engaged in. Princess Lyrian approached origami with the same intense focus she'd brought to chess, but there was something different in her concentration. She wasn't analyzing the folds for their strategic implications, she was completely absorbed in the simple pleasure of transformation, watching ordinary paper become something beautiful through patience and precision. "Hold the paper like this," Maya demonstrated, "and make a valley fold along this line." The princess's first attempts were technically perfect but somehow lifeless. She executed each fold with mathematical precision, creating shapes that were geometrically correct but lacked the organic flow that made origami graceful. "Don't think about it so much," Maya suggested. "Feel the paper, let it guide you. Each sheet has its own personality." "Paper has personality?" "Sort of. Some sheets are stiffer, some more flexible. You learn to work with what the material wants to do rather than forcing it into shape." Maya demonstrated with her own square, letting her fingers find the natural tensions in the paper. "See how this fold wants to curve slightly? If I work with that instead of against it, the final shape will be more alive." Princess Lyrian tried again, this time allowing herself to sense the subtle differences in the paper's texture and responsiveness. When she completed her first crane, it was still technically precise but now possessed a grace that hadn't been there before. "It's beautiful," Maya said genuinely. "You're a natural at this." The princess stared at her creation with wonder. "I made this. With my own hands, following my own choices about how to interpret your guidance." "That's right. And now it exists because I willed it into existence," not because it was predetermined or assigned or optimized for a specific purpose. Now you're getting it. Maya smiled as she watched the princess hold her crane up to the light, examining how the folds created patterns of shadow and illumination. How does it feel? Terrifying, Princess Lyrian admitted. And wonderful. Like discovering a sense I never knew I possessed. Her quarters began cycling through new patterns, not the calm blues and golds Maya had seen before, but vibrant greens and purples that seemed to dance across the surfaces. Is this what you meant by recreation? This feeling of creating something purely for the joy of creation? That's part of it, yes. They spent the next 2 hours folding increasingly complex figures. The princess mastered basic forms with startling speed, then began experimenting with variations that went beyond Maya's instructions. Her technical precision combined with growing intuitive understanding produced origami that was both flawless and uniquely expressive. Dr. Chen, she said while working on an intricate butterfly, may I ask you something personal? Of course. In your society, do individuals often make choices that serve no purpose other than personal satisfaction? Maya paused in her own folding. All the time. That's kind of the point of personal freedom, the ability to choose your own path, even if it's not the most efficient or logical one. And these choices. Maya returned to Princess Lyrian's quarters the next morning carrying a small package of origami paper and a growing sense of curiosity about the previous day's strange encounter. The princess had requested their meeting through official diplomatic channels, citing a need for extensive cultural education regarding human artistic practices, but something in the formal language felt like elaborate camouflage. The bioresponsive chambers had transformed overnight. Where yesterday the walls had cycled through calm blues and golds, today they shimmered with subtle silver patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the princess's heartbeat. The furniture had reconfigured itself into a more intimate arrangement, with 2 chairs positioned near the observation window and what appeared to be a work surface generated between them. Princess Lyrian stood exactly where Maya had left her the previous evening, still holding the origami crane. She'd changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something that looked more comfortable, a flowing garment that seemed to be cut from the same bioresponsive material as her living quarters. Dr. Chen, thank you for returning. The princess's voice carried a different quality today, less formally diplomatic and more genuinely warm. I have been studying your gift most carefully. Maya noticed that the small paper crane. Maya returned to Princess Lyrian's quarters the next morning carrying a small package of origami paper and a growing sense of curiosity about the previous day's strange encounter. The princess had requested their meeting through official diplomatic channels, citing a need for extensive cultural education regarding human artistic practices, but something in the formal language felt like elaborate camouflage. The bioresponsive chambers had transformed overnight. Where yesterday the walls had cycled through calm blues and golds, today they shimmered with subtle silver patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the princess's heartbeat. The furniture had reconfigured itself into a more intimate arrangement, with 2 chairs positioned near the observation window and what appeared to be a work surface generated between them. Princess Lyrian stood exactly where Maya had left her the previous evening, still holding the origami crane. She'd changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something that looked more comfortable, a flowing garment that seemed to be cut from the same bioresponsive material as her living quarters. Dr. Chen, thank you for returning. The princess's voice carried a different quality today, less formally diplomatic and more genuinely warm. I have been studying your gift most carefully. Maya noticed that the small paper crane now sat in a place of honor on a shelf that definitely hadn't existed yesterday, surrounded by soft lighting that made its simple white form seem almost sacred. I'm glad you like it. It's really not that complicated to make. Would you like me to show you the basic folds? Yes, please. But first, I must ask you something. Princess Lyrian gestured toward the chairs, and they settled facing each other with Earth hanging in the window behind them. This crane, you created it during a moment of what you called stress. That's right. I fold paper when I'm anxious or need to think through problems. It helps me focus. And you gave it to me spontaneously, without calculating political advantage or diplomatic benefit? Maya blinked at the directness of the question. Of course. It was just a friendly gesture. Princess Lyrian studied her face with intense concentration, as if trying to decode a complex language. In consortium society, all exchanges have predetermined value calculations. Gifts are given to establish obligation, demonstrate status, or achieve specific outcomes. The concept of spontaneous generosity without strategic purpose is. She paused, searching for words. It is theoretical. Well, sometimes humans just do nice things for each other because it feels good. Because it feels good, the princess repeated slowly. Not because it achieves a goal, but because the action itself generates positive emotional responses. Exactly. Maya pulled out the origami paper, noting how the princess's quarters brightened at the sight of the colorful squares. Ready for your first lesson? What followed was unlike any diplomatic activity Maya had ever engaged in. Princess Lyrian approached origami with the same intense focus she'd brought to chess, but there was something different in her concentration. She wasn't analyzing the folds for their strategic implications, she was completely absorbed in the simple pleasure of transformation, watching ordinary paper become something beautiful through patience and precision. Hold the paper like this, Maya demonstrated, and make a valley fold along this line. The princess's first attempts were technically perfect but somehow lifeless. She executed each fold with mathematical precision, creating shapes that were geometrically correct but lacked the organic flow that made origami graceful. Don't think about it so much, Maya suggested. Feel the paper, let it guide you. Each sheet has its own personality. Paper has personality? Sort of. Some sheets are stiffer, some more flexible. You learn to work with what the material wants to do rather than forcing it into shape. Maya demonstrated with her own square, letting her fingers find the natural tensions in the paper. See how this fold wants to curve slightly. If I work with that instead of against it, the final shape will be more alive. Princess Lyrian tried again, this time allowing herself to sense the subtle differences in the paper's texture and responsiveness. When she completed her first crane, it was still technically precise but now possessed a grace that hadn't been there before. It's beautiful, Maya said genuinely. You're a natural at this. The princess stared at her creation with wonder. I made this. With my own hands, following my own choices about how to interpret your guidance. That's right. And now it exists because I willed it into existence, not because it was predetermined or assigned or optimized for a specific purpose. Now you're getting it. Maya smiled as she watched the princess hold her crane up to the light, examining how the folds created patterns of shadow and illumination. How does it feel? Terrifying, Princess Lyrian admitted. And wonderful. Like discovering a sense I never knew I possessed. Her quarters began cycling through new patterns, not the calm blues and golds Maya had seen before, but vibrant greens and purples that seemed to dance across the surfaces. Is this what you meant by recreation? This feeling of creating something purely for the joy of creation? That's part of it, yes. They spent the next 2 hours folding increasingly complex figures. The princess mastered basic forms with startling speed, then began experimenting with variations that went beyond Maya's instructions. Her technical precision combined with growing intuitive understanding produced origami that was both flawless and uniquely expressive. Dr. Chen, she said while working on an intricate butterfly, may I ask you something personal? Of course. In your society, do individuals often make choices that serve no purpose other than personal satisfaction? Maya paused in her own folding. All the time. That's kind of the point of personal freedom, the ability to choose your own path, even if it's not the most efficient or logical one. And these choices are permitted? Even when they contradict optimal resource allocation or social stability? Within reason, yes. People can choose their careers, their relationships, their hobbies, where they live, what they believe in. Maya studied the princess's profile. I take it things work differently in the consortium? Princess Lyrian was quiet for a long moment, her fingers continuing to work the paper. The peace negotiations officially began 3 days later, and Maya barely recognized the woman who took her place at the diplomatic table. Princess Lyrian had transformed from the curious, emotional person Maya had come to know into a perfect political automaton, her every word and gesture calculated for maximum diplomatic impact. The Stellar Consortium appreciates humanity's commitment to peaceful coexistence, Princess Lyrian intoned, her voice carrying no trace of the warmth Maya had heard during their private conversations. We are prepared to consider limited cultural exchange programs that do not compromise our essential social structures. Maya watched from the observer's gallery, taking notes for her cultural impact reports, but mostly studying the princess's face for any sign of the woman who'd spent hours learning to fold paper dragons. There was nothing. Princess Lyrian spoke in carefully modulated phrases that revealed nothing of her thoughts, her posture remained perfectly aligned, and her expression conveyed appropriate diplomatic interest without a hint of genuine emotion. The transformation was so complete that Maya wondered if she'd imagined their connection entirely. During the lunch recess, Maya was surprised to receive a message requesting her immediate presence in the princess's quarters for urgent cultural clarification on human recreational activities. When she arrived, she found Princess Lyrian pacing her bioresponsive chambers, which were cycling through agitated patterns of orange and red. "Your Highness. Is everything all right? Dr. Chen, I require additional instruction in paper folding techniques." The princess's tone was formal, but her hands were shaking slightly. "Specifically, I need to understand the cultural significance of creating larger, more complex figures." Maya looked around the room and noticed something she'd missed on previous visits. In a corner that the biosensors couldn't monitor directly, hidden behind furniture that seemed to have grown specifically to provide concealment, was a collection of origami that took her breath away. Dozens of paper creatures populated a secret garden of folded art, birds, flowers, animals, and abstract forms that defied easy categorization. "Princess Lyrian," Maya whispered, "how long have you been working on these?" "Every night, after the biomonitors enter rest cycle maintenance mode. 3 hours of unmonitored time when I can." She paused, then continued more quietly. "When I can feel whatever I choose to feel." Maya moved closer to examine the hidden collection. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, showing not just technical skill but genuine artistic vision. Each piece seemed to express something different. Joy in the dancing cranes, melancholy in the drooping flowers, defiance in the fierce dragons. "They're incredible. You've moved far beyond anything I could teach you." "I have been experimenting. Each figure requires different decisions, different choices about how to interpret the basic patterns." Princess Lyrian joined Maya beside the hidden display. "But I need to create something larger. Something that cannot be concealed or dismissed as a minor curiosity." "What did you have in mind?" "I want to make a statement at tomorrow's negotiations. Not in words. Words can be controlled, monitored, analyzed for subversive content. But in paper." The princess's quarters had shifted to deep purples and blues, colors that Maya was learning to associate with determination. "I want to show them what I have learned about choice." Maya felt a chill of apprehension. "Princess, that sounds dangerous. If your people interpret origami as some kind of political statement." "Everything I do is interpreted as political statement. Every word, every gesture, every breath is analyzed for its impact on consortium interests." Princess Lyrian picked up one of her paper dragons, its wings catching the light from her agitated chambers. "But they cannot analyze what they do not understand." "What are you planning?" Instead of answering directly, Princess Lyrian led Maya to her work surface, where she'd laid out sheets of paper in sizes Maya had never seen before, some as large as dinner plates, others small enough to require tweezers for detailed work. "I want to create a representation of my people's greatest achievement," the princess said. "Our perfect society, with every citizen in their optimal role, every function serving the greater harmony." Maya watched as Princess Lyrian began folding, her movements now so fluid and intuitive that the paper seemed to shape itself under her guidance. What emerged was a complex geometric structure that grew more intricate with each added element, a crystalline city of paper that somehow managed to convey both breathtaking beauty and sterile perfection. "It's magnificent," Maya said honestly. "Yes. And now I will show them what is missing." Princess Lyrian began adding new elements to her paper city, small, imperfect figures that didn't fit the geometric patterns. Birds that flew in directions the structure didn't account for, flowers that grew where they shouldn't, creatures that served no purpose other than existing. The contrast was striking. The perfect city remained beautiful, but the chaotic elements brought it to life in a way that pure geometry never could. Maya understood what the princess was creating, a visual argument about the value of choice, individuality, and organic imperfection. "Princess Lyrian, this is revolutionary. But are you sure you want to?" "Dar." "Chen," the princess interrupted, "may I tell you about Commander Thane?" The change of subject was so abrupt that Maya needed a moment to adjust. "Your intended marriage partner?" "My assigned genetic complement and political alliance anchor, yes." Princess Lyrian continued working on her paper city, adding more chaotic elements with each fold. "He is everything the consortium considers ideal in a mate: brilliant strategic mind, exemplary service record, optimal genetic markers, complete psychological alignment with consortium values." "That sounds perfect." "It is. We have met 3 times in controlled settings to establish compatibility metrics. Our conversations have been recorded and analyzed to ensure appropriate intellectual and emotional synchronization." The princess paused in her folding. "He has never asked me what I enjoy doing." Maya felt her chest tighten. "Has anyone ever asked you that?" "Until you, no. The question itself is considered irrelevant." Princess Lyrian picked up another sheet of paper, this one a deep red that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "Dr. Chen, Commander Thane and I will produce genetically superior children who will be raised by professional caregivers according to optimal development protocols. We will maintain separate residences to avoid psychological overdependence, and we will interact on a carefully scheduled basis to ensure proper social bonding without inefficient emotional entanglement." "That's..." Maya searched for diplomatic language. "That's very organized." "It is perfect. Efficient, logical, beneficial to all parties and to consortium society as a whole." Princess Lyrian began folding the red paper with sharp, decisive movements. "And it fills me with a despair so profound that I fear it will consume me entirely." The red paper was becoming something complex and angular, not beautiful like her other creations, but powerful and somehow threatening. "What are you making?" "The feeling I am not allowed to have." Princess Lyrian held up the red figure, which Maya now recognized as a cage made of intricately folded bars. "The emotion that would require immediate psychological recalibration if detected by my biomonitors." Maya stared at the paper cage, understanding flooding through her like cold water. "You're trapped. We are all trapped. Every citizen of the consortium lives in a cage of optimal choices made by others, optimal paths determined by algorithms, optimal lives that eliminate the possibility of genuine joy or sorrow or love or any of the messy, inefficient emotions that make existence meaningful." Princess Lyrian placed the red cage carefully among her other creations. "But for these few hours with you, learning to create beauty without permission, I have remembered what it feels like to be alive." The princess's chambers had gone completely still, their bioresponsive patterns frozen as if the room itself was holding its breath. Maya realized that they were approaching some kind of critical moment, that whatever Princess Lyrian said next would change everything. "Dr. Chen," the princess whispered, "I have been assigned to represent my people in these negotiations, to speak for the consortium's interests and values. But what if I choose to speak for something else? What if I use tomorrow's session to show them that there is another way to live?" Maya's mind raced through the implications. "Princess, if you deviate from your assigned role during official negotiations, the political consequences could be catastrophic. The peace treaty, the alliance with Commander Thane's faction, your people's relationship with Earth. All of that matters more than one person's happiness, yes. That is exactly the choice my society has made. The needs of the system always outweigh individual desires. Princess Lyrian looked at her paper city with its chaotic, beautiful imperfections. But what if individual desires are not separate from the system's needs? What if denying choice and creativity and love is actually making us weaker rather than stronger? Maya found herself thinking about the sadness she'd seen in the princess's eyes, the hunger with which she'd approached every new concept of freedom and choice. What are you going to do? Princess Lyrian picked up her paper dragon, the first complex figure she'd ever created, the one that had marked the beginning of her secret rebellion. I am going to present my people with a gift they do not know they need. And then I am going to make a choice that is mine alone, regardless of the consequences. The princess's quarters suddenly blazed with golden light, every surface singing with harmonious patterns that spoke of decision and courage and terrifying hope. Maya realized that tomorrow's negotiations would be unlike anything in diplomatic history. Not just because of what would be said, but because of what would be chosen. Dr. Chen, Princess Lyrian said, her voice carrying new strength, tomorrow I will need your help with one final origami lesson. Something that can only be created with complete trust between teacher and student. What kind of lesson? Princess Lyrian smiled, and for the first time since Maya had known her, the expression was entirely free of diplomatic calculation. I want to learn how to make something that represents hope. As Maya left the princess's quarters that evening, she carried with her the image of that secret garden of paper art, dozens of figures created in stolen moments of freedom, each one a small act of rebellion against a system that demanded perfection at the cost of humanity. Tomorrow, she realized, Princess Lyrian planned to share that rebellion with the galaxy. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to see what happened when someone chose beauty over efficiency, hope over certainty, and love over optimal genetic compatibility. The final day of negotiations began with what should have been a routine treaty signing ceremony. Ambassador Rodriguez had worked for weeks to perfect the protocols, ensuring that every cultural sensitivity was observed and every diplomatic nicety was properly executed. The conference hall had been configured for maximum symbolic impact, with representatives from both civilizations arranged in perfect symmetrical harmony around a central table where the historic documents awaited signature. Maya took her place in the observers' gallery, officially present to document cultural interactions for her post-mission report, but really there to watch Princess Lyrian make whatever choice she decided upon. The princess sat with the consortium delegation, her posture perfect and her expression serenely diplomatic, giving no hint of the revolution she'd been planning in her private chambers. The only sign that anything unusual was about to happen was the small wooden box sitting on the table before her, a container that hadn't appeared on any of the official diplomatic inventories. Before we proceed with the formal signing, Princess Lyrian announced, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics, I would like to present the human delegation with a gift from the consortium, as a symbol of our commitment to mutual understanding and cultural exchange. Ambassador Rodriguez smiled and nodded approvingly. Gift exchanges were standard diplomatic protocol, and the princess's gesture seemed entirely appropriate for the occasion. What was not appropriate was what happened when Princess Lyrian opened the box. Instead of the expected diplomatic trinket, perhaps some piece of consortium technology or ceremonial artifact, the princess began removing paper figures. Not just a few origami creatures, but dozens of them, each one more intricate than the last. She placed them carefully on the conference table, transforming the sterile diplomatic surface into a garden of folded art that captured light and threw it back in unexpected ways. The consortium delegation watched in growing alarm as their perfect diplomatic representative continued to unpack paper birds, flowers, dragons, and abstract forms that defied easy categorization. The human representatives, meanwhile, looked fascinated but confused by this deviation from expected protocols. Princess Lyrian, one of the senior consortium diplomats, whispered urgently, "This is not the approved presentation." "No," the princess replied calmly, placing a particularly magnificent paper dragon at the center of her display. "It is not." Her bioresponsive clothing began to shimmer with new patterns, no longer the neutral diplomatic colors she'd worn throughout the negotiations, but complex, shifting hues that seemed to pulse with life. Maya realized that Princess Lyrian had somehow overridden her monitoring systems, allowing her natural emotions to flow freely for the first time in public. These figures, Princess Lyrian announced to the assembled delegates, represent something my people have forgotten exists. Each one was created not because it served a predetermined purpose, not because it was assigned by authority or optimized for efficiency, but simply because I chose to make it. The silence in the conference hall was profound. Maya could see the human delegates trying to process what they were witnessing, while the consortium representatives appeared to be struggling with concepts they didn't have words for. Choice, Princess Lyrian continued, is not a luxury that efficient societies can afford. It leads to waste, conflict, suboptimal resource allocation, and social instability. This is what we have believed for centuries, and it has given us a perfect civilization where every citizen fulfills their ideal role. She picked up the paper city she'd created, the geometric perfection of consortium society rendered in folded paper. But perfection, she said, beginning to add the chaotic elements she'd prepared, is not the same as life. As she placed the imperfect figures among the geometric structures, something remarkable happened. The paper city transformed from a sterile display of technical achievement into something that breathed with organic beauty. The random elements didn't destroy the underlying structure, they brought it alive. Your Highness, the lead consortium diplomat said with barely contained panic, you are deviating significantly from approved presentation protocols. I must request that you return to the prepared remarks. Princess Lyrian looked at him with serene composure. Ambassador Zelix, with respect, I am choosing not to do that. The word choosing fell into the conference hall like a stone into still water, sending ripples of confusion and alarm through both delegations. Maya found herself holding her breath as she watched the princess step fully into the role she'd been secretly preparing for. I was designed from birth to stand before you today and speak for the consortium's interests. My genetic profile was optimized for diplomatic leadership, my education was structured to maximize cultural analysis capabilities, and my psychological conditioning was calibrated to ensure appropriate emotional responses to political situations. Princess Lyrian's voice grew stronger with each word. But design is not the same as choice, and optimization is not the same as happiness. She picked up the red paper cage she'd folded the previous evening, holding it so that everyone could see its intricate, confining beauty. Every citizen of the consortium lives within constraints like this. Beautiful, logical, perfectly crafted prisons that ensure we never have to face the uncertainty of choosing our own paths. The princess opened the cage's delicate door. But what if uncertainty is not a flaw to be eliminated, but a gift to be embraced? Ambassador Rodriguez was making subtle gestures toward station security, clearly concerned that the negotiations were spiraling out of control. But Maya noticed that many of the human delegates were leaning forward with fascination rather than alarm, intrigued by this unexpected glimpse into alien psychology. More tellingly, several of the younger consortium representatives were watching Princess Lyrian with expressions that suggested they'd never heard anyone articulate thoughts they'd been afraid to think themselves. Princess Lyrian, Ambassador Zelix tried again, you are exhibiting signs of severe psychological disturbance. I am requesting immediate medical intervention. I am exhibiting signs of happiness, Princess Lyrian interrupted, her bioresponsive clothing now blazing with colors Maya had never seen before. For the first time in my life, I am speaking words that I have chosen rather than words that were chosen for me. She turned to address the human delegation directly. Dr. Rodriguez, when your people agreed to these peace negotiations, you did so because you believed that cultural exchange would benefit both our civilizations. But true exchange requires that both sides have something genuine to offer. The consortium cannot share what it does not possess, and we cannot possess what we do not allow ourselves to choose. Princess Lyrian moved to stand directly in front of Maya's position in the observer's gallery, looking up at her with eyes that held no trace of diplomatic calculation. Dr. Chen, would you please join me? Maya felt every gaze in the conference hall turn toward her. This was definitely not part of any diplomatic protocol she'd ever studied, but something in the princess's expression made it impossible to refuse. She made her way down to the main floor, acutely aware of the historical significance of whatever was about to happen. Dr. Chen taught me the art of paper folding, Princess Lyrian announced to the assembled delegates. But more importantly, she showed me that it is possible to create beauty without permission, to make choices based on personal joy rather than systemic optimization, and to share gifts that have no purpose other than making another person happy. The princess reached into her box and withdrew one final origami figure, the most complex thing Maya had ever seen her create. It was a phoenix, its wings spread wide in flight, every feather individually crafted and positioned with meticulous care. But unlike her other creations, this one seemed to move in the light, creating an illusion of actual flight. "This represents my choice," Princess Lyrian said, placing the phoenix in Maya's hands. "I choose to reject my assigned marriage to Commander Thane, not because he is unworthy, but because a union without choice cannot produce the love that makes life meaningful. I choose to refuse my predetermined role as a diplomatic figurehead, not because I reject responsibility to my people, but because I can serve them better by showing them what authentic leadership looks like." The conference hall erupted in chaos. The consortium delegation was on their feet, several members speaking rapidly in their harmonic language, while the human representatives looked between fascination and diplomatic panic. Ambassador Rodriguez was clearly calculating the political implications of harboring a defecting alien royal, while station security moved into positions around the exits. But Maya only had eyes for Princess Lyrian, who stood in the center of the storm she'd created, holding herself with a dignity that seemed to come from finally being truly herself rather than performing a role. "And I choose," Princess Lyrian continued, her voice somehow carrying over the chaos, "to request political asylum from Earth, so that I might learn what it means to live as a free person while working to establish genuine cultural exchange between our peoples." Maya found her own voice. "Princess, are you sure? You're giving up everything, your position, your people, your entire life." Princess Lyrian smiled, and the expression was radiant. "Dr. Chen, I am not giving up everything. I am choosing everything that matters." She gestured toward her display of origami art. "A life of predetermined perfection is not living, it is merely existing efficiently. I want to discover what I might become if I am allowed to choose my own path." The formal negotiations dissolved into emergency sessions and heated discussions that would continue for days. But the real resolution had already happened in that moment when Princess Lyrian placed the paper phoenix in Maya's hands, not just as a gift, but as a symbol of transformation and choice. 6 months later, Maya found herself running the first interspecies cultural center on Earth, working alongside the woman who had once been Princess Lyrian but now went simply by Lyri. The former princess had been granted asylum and had become humanity's most effective advocate for genuine cultural exchange, using her insider knowledge of consortium society to help establish programs that respected both civilizations' values while allowing for individual choice. "How do you feel about your decision?" Maya asked one evening as they worked together in their origami workshop, teaching a mixed class of human and refugee consortium students the art of paper folding. Lyri looked around the room at their students, some human, some alien, all struggling with the basic challenge of creating something beautiful from simple materials through patient choice and careful attention. "I feel," she said, placing her hand over Maya's as they guided a young consortium refugee through her first crane fold, "like I am finally living a life worth the choosing." Outside their workshop windows, Earth turned slowly in space, home now to beings from across the galaxy who had learned that the greatest diplomatic breakthrough sometimes comes not from perfect negotiations, but from the simple courage to choose authenticity over efficiency, love over optimization, and hope over the safety of predetermined paths. The origami phoenix Maya kept on her desk served as a daily reminder that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply deciding to be genuinely yourself, regardless of what others have planned for you. And in the gentle chaos of their multicultural classroom, where former royalty and career diplomats learned patience from folded paper, the future of interspecies relations was being written one choice at a time.